What's going on, everybody? It's Roberto here. Thank you, as always, for joining me. So this week, for some reason, I had a joke that popped into my head, and and it made me laugh just like the first time I heard it and told it. And I can't remember if it was a joke that either my dad told me, because we always told each other jokes, or I told him, or I couldn't wait to tell him because I knew he'd love it. But either way, I was thinking about it and I wanted to share it with you guys to start the show, just to change it up a little. And so it goes like this. So there's a guy walking down the street one day and he's a little bit thirsty, and he hears some kind of coming from this bar. So he decides to peek his head in. And he opens the door and it's bumping in there. There's, people playing pool, the ball's cracking, drinks clinking, the jukebox is in the corner playing music, people are dancing, and he's like, wow, this looks like the place for me. And he notices a crowd over in the corner, and people are laughing and pointing, and there's something going on. And so he walks up to the bartender and orders a drink, and he sees this gold lantern on the bar. Kind of looks like an ornament, but it looks a little bit out of place, and it looks like people have, it's kind of sitting out, and it looks like kind of people have congregated around it and are talking about it. And he wonders and asks the bartender, hey, what's that? And the bartender's like, oh, that's for the genie. It's a magic lamp. And there's a genie over there granting people wishes. And he's like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, but for some reason, he only gives everybody one wish. Maybe he's a little drunk or something. I'm not sure, but he'll give you one wish. So the guy walks over and asks, and, hey, genie, can you grant me a wish? And the genie's like, of course, I'm a genie. That's what I fucking do. What good would I be if I couldn't grant you a wish? And he's like, but it's a little loud in here, so make sure you speak up. And he's like, I'll give you one. So make sure, think about it long and hard, and really make sure that, it's what you want, and I'll grant it for you immediately. So the guy kind of mulls it over, and he's going through a couple options in his head, and seems very, very sure. So he whispers in the genie's ear. And the genie's like, are you sure? And he's like, can you say that again? It's a little loud in here. So the guy's like, little louder. And Genie's like, you're sure that's what you want, your one wish? And the guy's like, yeah, I'm positive. And so poof, lo and behold, as the dust settles, there's this handsome little man in a tuxedo, about 1 foot tall, and he's just sitting there playing this beautiful baby grand piano, this little small baby grand piano, and he's just tickling those ivories, the most beautiful melody you could ever imagine. And the guy looks stunned, kind of looks over at the genie and everybody else standing around him. It's like, this guy, that's what his one wish was? And the genie's like, you look disappointed. And the guy looks over at him and he's like, why would I wish I had a 12-inch pianist? Anything? Just the crickets? Anyways. Oh, 12-inch pianist. You guys get it? I thought that was a hilarious joke. Anyways, so thank you for joining me. Did I even say, now I'm lost. Did I even start the show? How did I start the show? So we are on episode 9 of the Rob Anderson Show, Foundational Healing. I appreciate you taking this journey with me. And as I do, if you've listened to some of my shorts or other things, I'm always looking for synchronicities from the universe, what to talk about. And I make lists or ideas. I say, what should I, sometimes I'll do random things. I'll write stuff out, or I have all these things written on my wall and I'll just kind of blindly point to one, or I'll wait for something to kind of pop into my awareness. And one of the things, so I was at the grocery store, and I had to pick up some peanut butter, and it was at the beginning of this aisle, and I knew exactly where it was. And I never usually go down the rest of that aisle, because it's just poison. It's just all, sugar cereals and granola bars and chocolate covered dipped things and just hot cocos and whatever. It's just all the poison aisle. So I wasn't even looking. I just, 10 years ago, that was like, oh my God, I'd be getting a whole bunch of stuff from that aisle. But these days, none of it. And so I'm just kind of keeping my eyes straight, knowing that there's nothing for me in this aisle. And as I go to turn out of the aisle, I see something and it said diet, whatever. And I was like, that's a good next video title. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with diet, because that had been on my list. And that was the only word I saw in that aisle. So that kind of confirmed it for me. And so today's episode is all about your diet. And no, we're not talking about Diet Coke. If you do drink Coke, you might as well keep drinking the regular stuff because I'm pretty sure that Diet Coke is worse for you than the regular Coke. I've heard that aspartame causes Alzheimer's and just who knows what's in that crap. So it's probably no worse. If anything, I don't know if it's worse, but it's probably no worse, at least than whatever they're putting in their high fructose corn syrup. So today, diet, it's a big thing. Everybody's probably at different places. If you were like me 12 years ago, 15 years ago-ish, up until I started changing my diet was horrible. I was having pizza every day. I would probably drink a can of Coke or two a day, chocolate milk, have a sugared cereal. I was eating 3 meals a day out pretty much, as I'd mentioned, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner when I was working at a job where I had a 3 hour a day commute. So I wasn't, in the morning, I wasn't spending time making a healthy breakfast. In the evening, getting home after an hour and a half commute, I really didn't really feel like, spending an hour making healthy food or anything like that. So it was all fast food. But with the diet, little changes can go a long way. And everybody's unique. So I'm not going to start saying, well, you got to do this and you got to do that. Just start whittling little things away. And you realize after a few years that, food becomes an addiction too. And for a lot of us, if you have an addictive personality and you're like me and you had a lot of addictions, I think food was probably one of my first coping mechanisms. And so that's a thing that you have to realize, that sometimes our diet is a very difficult thing to change, because it's not just something that you do. It's a habit. So changing habits are difficult. If you've ever tried to quit smoking or whatever it may be, it's not always easy. And I always refer to the Mark Twain quote. I think it was Mark Twain who said, a habit cannot be merely thrown out the window. It has to be coaxed down the stairs one step at a time. And that's fucking perfect advice for changing your diet. So you don't need to, an elimination diet is a wonderful thing. But if you're ill or something like that, starting from scratch, eliminating everything and then rebuilding is probably the way to go. But everybody's unique. So do what you can, don't make it difficult, and just start eliminating little things or cutting back or budgeting your food. So say instead of having a can of Coke a day, say, you know what, I'm gonna cut them out on weekdays and just have whatever on the weekends. And so something as small and little like that is going to go a long way. Just these little changes. So that way it doesn't get overwhelming. It's not this massive change. But start listening to your body, because everybody's different. Everybody's unique. So everybody lives, has different DNA, different culture, different upbringings. They're raised in different foods, different geographic locations. So, some people are vegetarians. Are you going to be a vegetarian in the Arctic where you're probably eating elk meat and fishing and things like that and hunting? Probably not. Where their growing season is very short, are you going to be a vegetarian someplace like that? Probably not. So everybody's different, but you can limit how much you're eating. If you're emotional eating, are you actually hungry? For me, I think it was just, not even being consciously aware and thinking that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You got to eat lots of food to grow up and be big, strong, and healthy. And, just so many things. So my old diet was just night and day difference from where it is today. And so one of the first things that I did, as I mentioned, just taking little steps. And now what kind of my motto is for anything. And diet, I'll just take a sidebar to say that diet it's not just food. It's everything that we take in. So if you think of what you're taking in, diet could be what you're listening to, what you're watching, what you're putting on your skin, because what goes on you goes in you. And I'll do a different episode on that, but today's just about our diet in terms of food. And so start with trials, make it fun, make it exciting, saying, you know what, I'm done with my weight, I'm done with my habitual eating, and don't be too hard on yourself. It's like a binge on the weekends instead of every day or whatever. But one thing that I always say is fill up on the good and then there's no room left for the bad. So one of the first steps that I did was getting a blender. And so for breakfast, rather than having like these bagel belts at Tim Hortons, I don't know, for you non-Canadian viewers, Tim Hortons is like a coffee sandwich donut shop where I used to get breakfast. So they had like bagel sandwiches, I guess you'd call them, with egg and whatever else. They had a whole bunch of variety of different types, but they were bagel breakfast sandwiches with like a hash brown and a double coffee, 2 creams and 2 sugars, just not the healthiest breakfast. So one of the first steps that I took was just a very simple thing, using frozen berries and different things, and maybe at the time I think I was using protein powders and whatever, just making it fun and exciting. Go online, check out frozen shakes, but blending shakes. So frozen berries, bananas, maybe even some nuts and seeds. At some point I was doing it in there. I didn't mind a little bit of crunchiness in the shake. And so, when you have that for breakfast, you're filling up on the good, and you're not going to be hungry for crap. You're not going to be snacking. You're going to, you have a nice fruit smoothie for breakfast, and that's going to tide you over. And so, because I know that for myself, growing up, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And then nowadays I intermittent fast, so I don't even really eat breakfast for, halfway through the day till a lot of times maybe around noon or 2 o'clock. And then some days I'll eat breakfast just to change it up, because I do like variety. I I call it creative scheduling. I think I have a video about that from a few years ago, but I don't like routine. I like a structure, but routines for me are just deadly, doing the same thing day in and day out. So I like to change it up. Not every day is the same. So like I said, some days I'll get up, I'll have breakfast, and I'll change what I'm having. It's not always the same. Maybe it's a piece of toast and peanut butter. Maybe it's a fresh pressed juice these days. But when I first started doing it, it was just something simple. It was just, I'm going to do blended fruit shakes now for breakfast. And that was amazing. That eliminated, either the unhealthy breakfast sandwiches or, the hungry man's breakfast at a local diner with like pieces of pea meal and toast and home fries and whatever else I was getting in there. And so that was, starting with a breakfast and having a healthy breakfast, that's going to really set the pace for your day. And so, like I said, do some trials, do your own research, see what works for you, what works for your body. And one of the biggest things I think for myself is that start maybe tracking. It sucks to have to track your diet, but if you want to make changes, sometimes it's not such a bad thing. And I realized that I was massively probably dehydrated. I don't think I really tap water is disgusting, so I'd have some bottled water here and there, but I didn't know anything about how much water you're supposed to drink per day. I don't think I even drank probably dehydrated until I was about 27 years old. I used to drink chocolate milk, concentrated fruit juices, pop, what else in there? Coffee, but water, few and far between. And so making a simple change like that to just, having a blended fruit shake for breakfast and drinking a little bit more water. One thing I found out a few years later after I started doing that diet, changing my diet, was that often hunger and thirst pangs are similar. So a lot of times you think that you're hungry, but you're actually dehydrated. You're actually just thirsty. And so a lot of people, until you become aware of the difference, which takes some practice and a period of time to really understand and feel what does hunger feel like versus dehydration, they can actually feel very similar. So a lot of times when you think you're hungry, you're probably just dehydrated and just need a little water. So for myself, I know that I hated tap water. So for a while I was buying bottled water, and I started doing all my own research regarding what type of bottled water to buy. And I liked spring water, but I actually ended up starting to drink distilled water. And if you do your research on that, there's a lot of stuff you can find arguments for and against just about anything in this day and age. But I would also suggest that when you are doing research, check out some other search engines other than Google, because Google is pay-per-click advertising. So the people with the biggest budgets usually have the highest ranked stuff. So, the companies raking in the most money usually have the top results. So use other search engines and do a lot of research, search through several pages and get a good a good swath, if you will, of opinions about things. And so I did a lot of research into distilled water, and you can find arguments for or against it, but I decided, you know what, it's better than the fucking crap that's coming out of the tap. So I'm going to go with distilled water, and if you want to add a little pinch of Himalayan sea salt or Celtic sea salt to it, if you're worried about it not having enough minerals, then do whatever feels good for you. This is all about foundational healing, which is spiritual healing and spiritual self-development and regaining your spiritual integrity and listening to your own source, going within and listening, staying with your own consciousness, not going outside of yourself for answers. So do the research and then do what feels good to you. And if it doesn't feel good after a while, switch it up, try different things and do the trial and error. Because we, as foundational healers, we are the healer and the healed eventually. So we are our own best physicians. Because there's great doctors out there, but sometimes doctors can instill timelines. They can, if you ever heard the term death by diagnosis, I think I've mentioned that on a previous episode. So really start trusting your spirit, listening to your body. And I know for myself, like when you're eating unhealthy, when you're smoking, when you're drinking, when you're under stress, when you're working a job you don't like, when you're like that whole recipe is just, it's a slow suicide, and your baseline feeling is crap. So when you feel like shit as your baseline, you don't even know what feeling good feels like. The way I feel today compared to how I felt 10 to 15 years ago, if you were to tell me that I'd feel way better at 41 than I did at 27 or 32 even, I would say there's no way. But it's true, because age is just a number, and I'm healthier today spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, than I was back then. And you know what? It's amazing. So it doesn't matter. It's never too late. It doesn't matter what point in your life that you want to get your shit together, get healthy, start a new foundation. And it's always, now is always the best time. It's like I think it's a Chinese proverb, says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So it doesn't matter where you are. Today's your start date. And even if this is the first time watching my videos, go back on this, they're in a playlist, and you can go back to the first episode and watch the other ones and see some of the things that I spoke about and the steps that I've taken. And everybody's different. So, I was talking about people with developing this program, and they were like, well, people need programs, people love programs, and it's really difficult. I didn't follow a program. I kind of just did my own thing, and I like doing that, but I understand why people like programs. So there's been some people asking, I might develop it into an online workshop or something that I can deliver in person, and make it into, an actionable step plan. Maybe not everybody's going to start the way I did with quitting their job or whatever it is, but we'll do something that's easily accessible for everybody. But work with yourself. Trust your own advice, trust your own inner guidance, trust your spirit, because that's what we're missing. That's what I was missing, at least. I won't speak for everybody, but trusting our own spiritual integrity. I've said it on the show before, we're trained and conditioned growing up and programmed to always be looking outside of ourselves, like the fucking X-Files. The truth is out there. No. I grew up on the X-Files, and and that was the tagline, right? The truth is out there, but the truth is in here. And so when you really start taking that ownership and reeling in your spiritual integrity and reeling back your consciousness and understanding that and trusting yourself, it's a very powerful thing. So where are we? I'm looking at my my notes here. So little changes. Yep, went through that. DNA, everybody's different. Yep, everybody's body's different. All that stuff. Okay, doing your own research. What works for you? And I wanted to go back to water. I might not get to some of the other things in today. Maybe this will be diet will be set up into two parts, because I wasn't really planning on talking about water in the diet section, but something that I just became aware of recently, pardon me, about water was not only the ability to drink healthy water. So right now I'm drinking distilled water. I already mentioned that, but to drink it in a healthy manner and to stay hydrated throughout the day, to drink enough water in small sips throughout the day. And the reason you want to do that, I was the kind of person that was like, loved eating pizza, washing it down with a can of Coke. And so I don't know if you've ever heard this, and I know soup goes against what I'm about to say because a friend told me apparently you're not supposed to drink while you eat, and I was like, well, what the fuck is soup then? And he's like, touche, that's a really good point. So maybe there's a difference with soup or the ratio of liquid to maybe stew is better. Maybe soup's not essentially not that good for us, but the lady, I forget what her name is. I think she's either from New Zealand, she's or Australia. I forget her name, but I like her and I follow her. She's got really good. If I remember her name, I'll put her down in the information below. Um, but so that came up recently, like when you hear somebody say it, when you hear a buddy say something, you're just like, yeah, whatever. Like, what does he know? But then when you hear a doctor say it, you're like, oh, maybe there's something to it. And so she was talking about why you shouldn't eat, I think half hour before you have, or sorry, why you shouldn't drink a half hour before you eat, and then I think 90 minutes after you eat. And if you have to, just maybe a small sip. But the reasoning behind that is that if you say you take a big gulp of water or you're drinking and not chewing your food properly or whatever, well, a couple things happen. First, while you're eating, it's diluting your hydrochloric acid, I think it is that it's referred to. And so your digestive enzymes and everything, I guess, if you flood that with water, it's not going to be able to break down the food as much. So there's the first reason. And also throughout the day, even when you're not eating, to just take smaller sips. Just little sips, little sip in the mouth, wash it around, do everything in a sacred manner, right? Just enjoy the sip, be present with it, slow down, do it, do it with like appreciation, like it was your last day on earth or your first time drinking and you were in the desert. Maybe you'd be just, but I was thinking that I used to just pound water. I called it chugging or pounding or whatever, and I wouldn't stay properly hydrated with small sips throughout the day. And then at some point I would, drink half a liter in one shot, not understanding that that's horrible for your gut, your microbiome in your gut, because it's basically flooding the system. And so any, that healthy gut bacteria are washed away. It's no different than, say, if you have topsoil and you turn over the topsoil and all the nutrients on farmland, and then you get a crazy torrential downpour and it just washes away all the nutrients. It's similar. I think that was the analogy that person used. And so I was like, that's interesting. So I used to drink while I ate, and I used to just really chug any beverage whenever I had it a lot of times. And so I'm learning these are things that I just practiced in the past year, drinking my water in a sacred manner, but also taking smaller sips throughout the day rather than drinking huge amounts at, set intervals or whenever I get too thirsty. So to just have a cup with me and just little sips here and there. And if you do need, I think she said, if you do need to drink a decent amount, try to keep it no more than a cup, 250 milliliters for a certain amount of time. So if you do need a little bit, but try to sip it if you can throughout the day. So then that way you're not flushing any the good stuff out of your system. And so water being a huge thing, because the water that comes to us in the pipes, I don't know if you've ever seen, like here in Canada, I don't know where you guys live that are listening, but we have fluoride in a lot of places in the water, and I don't even want to get into how it's treated. And that's the thing. It's not, they call it a water purification plant, but I wouldn't say that they purify it, because to me, distilling it is purifying it. What they're doing there is adding more crap to it. So yeah, they're adding fluoride and chlorine and things to, whatever. They're adding stuff to it, not removing it. So unless it's distilled water, I don't think it should be called necessarily purified per se. But we don't know what's in the water, and it's not healthy. It comes to us through pipes and 90-degree angles, and it's just spat out of the tap. So they have things that can restructure water. If you want to put, any type of filtration system at the spout or in a Brita, anything, like they have reverse osmosis. Do some research, make it fun and interesting. Go on an adventure, be excited that you're taking control of your life and your health, and figure out what works for you. So, but like I said, I drink distilled, and I was buying it in 4-liter bottles for a long time, and I'm not a fan of buying bottles, plastic bottles of water. And eventually I ended up buying a home distiller, and there's, you can find a decent one for $200. They go up to like 1,200, and but you can find a decent one for a couple $100, and do it in the comfort of your own home. Run it overnight. I think the one I have makes about 3.5 liters or 4 liters a day, so it'll run for 3.5 hours, and it's like having a kettle on. So it's going to draw a little bit of power, but it is what it is. And but so there's different things that you could put. I've even seen some interesting things that can actually go in the pipes that come into your house, and it's a spiral. It's like a water rifling thing, and it's just a little copper pipe that they put in, I guess, in between where the water comes into your house and is passed out through the rest of your house, which I think that's pretty interesting. So if anybody has experience with those, I'd love to hear firsthand of some of the experiences with that. But another thing is just restructuring your water. I know that they have water vortex generating machines. I saw one guy talking about that. He puts his water in a vortex thing. I don't think you necessarily need to do that. Some people have said that, putting it in and shaking it and re-stimulating it and getting it back to life. I've seen some interesting things that have these like natural stone vortexes that water goes down. Apparently that purifies it just the same way it would when it's in a stream. So, it's going over all the rocks and it's flowing around, it's doing its water thing. And that's living water. It's restructuring it. It's keeping that resonance and the good vibration through it. It's not like the water that comes out of our pipes is essentially dead. And I think it was last episode or one of the episodes I talked about Dr. Emoto and the power of restructuring your water. And so what I do is I have a silver spoon, and so I stir it, 40 times just to get it spinning up, create that vortex and re-stimulate the water. And I just spilt it all over me. At least I didn't get any on the keyboard. And there's not going to be any outtakes, because I'm not editing these videos, so you get to just deal with me cleaning myself off here in this armrest. Anyways, where were we? So stirring the water, and I think that I've spoken about this before, but just in case it's your first time tuning in, I've talked about restructuring the water and using your own divine resonance. The same way as doing a mind to heart drop or commanding your consciousness, restructuring the water, saying, I command my spirit to heal and balance this water, to restructure it with divine peace energy, to fill it with amazing energetics and love and peace, whatever you want to say. Just Dr. Emoto has shown, even just writing, they've done the studies where they froze the molecules of water, and so somebody speaking words of love and peace, really good vibrations, classical music, and then they put the water under an electron microscope, and it's got these beautiful geometric patterns that are just perfectly symmetrical. They look like amazing snowflakes, or beautiful like geometry shapes, and hexagonal, whatever the word you want to use. Not necessarily just that, but just beautiful structured water, just very powerful, very good resonance. Where if you say negative things to it, like I hate you, and it almost looks like somebody took a paintbrush, dipped it in paint and splattered it. So like the molecular structure of that water is just horrible. So it really goes to show, since that we're 73% or 80% or varying for different people on different days, we're mostly water, right? So just think about the negative frequencies, not only that we might think from our thoughts or emit from our mouth, or that we're exposed to all around us, the computers, the LED lights, who knows, all the other stuff. It all adds up, right? And it's all frequencies. And so restructuring your water, commanding it, I command this water to heal and balance me now, after you've stirred it with a spoon, created the vortex or whatever, or even swirled it, I guess would even help. Just whatever, just taking it or making it in a sacred manner, and not just rushing through life. And so doing everything in a sacred manner, that includes just even taking a sip of water here and there. And so I wasn't sure about including water in diet, but since we're mostly water, it's a very significant thing. And given the fact that the hunger and thirst pangs, I didn't know that for years after. So I didn't realize how maybe dehydrated, even though I started drinking good water and healthier water, and water that, and like distilled water is, I always tell my friends, it's more watery than water. Like it's just, it feels like just liquid gold. Like it's just so soft and voluptuous and just has this almost creamy texture to it compared to tap water. So just do, you know, like anything else, do some research, do some experiments for yourself, try some out. And if you think, you know, maybe switch between spring water and distilled, if, you know, go back and forth if you don't want to drink just distilled water, but restructure it, stir it, create that vortex, and make it, you know, make the whole process of consuming it in a more sacred manner. Don't just throw it back, don't just pound it, all that stuff, that all adds up, and it's going to really change. And that's probably, if I could go back and do that now and introduce, you know, the changing the water immediately into my diet, that would be one of the first things I did. So I'm gonna probably end it there. Let me just check my time because I don't want to make these videos too long. Yeah, and I've already been rambling for a while. So thank you guys for sticking with me on this. I thought I would get diet all into one show, but I think it's gonna at least be 2 or 3 because I'm still not even done foods, because we still want, I want to talk about, you know, I was born and raised in the 80s and the Canada Food Guide, and that, holy shit, that was, I think that Canada Food Guide was trying to kill everybody and make them obese and give us all diabetes. And eating way too many carbs, and then really questioning where our food comes from and all those sorts of things. And so I'm going to go do that on the next episode. So we'll split up this episode into 2 or 3. And but thank you guys for joining me on diet. And I'm gonna on the cover image or the thumbnail or whatever, that is the former me who weighed 250 pounds. Actually, the picture of me in that picture, that's probably not even at my biggest, but you know, I look back and I just send love to that guy. He was doing the best he could with what he had at the time, and you know, it was just an experience and a point in my life. And there was a few years where I beat myself up and been like, I don't know how I ever let myself get like that. But you know what? That's there's no need to beat yourself up, because like I said before, that's how you got to that state in the first place, was being too hard on yourself. So just, you know, when you think about back, if you do think back to that former self, you know, after you've kind of made progress, just nothing but love, nothing but peace and appreciation. It was just an experience. Command your spirit and body to take the emotional charge out of your cellular memory from that time, so that it's just like watching somebody else's movie, and you just, you know, you're like, wow. And you could see the progress without the emotional attachment to the story and things like that, or without any negative connotation, or I can't believe it. You know, there was years like, I can't believe I did all that stuff, or I can't believe it. You know, and don't beat yourself up. Take the ego out of it. Just let it go. It was just an experience. And, you know, just nothing but unconditional love and peace for all the iterations of you throughout your life, from here, from then until here, and now moving forward. That's the whole thing, is that getting your spiritual integrity back, becoming more in your body, more body aware, more fully planted and grounded in who you are, stronger foundation. And that's the whole point of this. So, you know, you don't need to go looking back and beating up your former self, because I did that for too many years as well. So thank you guys so much for joining me. As I'm just looking at my, any other things, I'm just looking at my notes here that I want to touch on in this video. No, we'll save it. We'll save the rest for next video. So I love hearing comments, questions, suggestions. Thank you so much to all the people who've reached out, the people in some of the groups that I'm in and that are watching my videos, and they're not necessarily commenting on the videos themselves, but mentioning stuff in the groups and on calls. And that means the world to me. It's amazing. And I love sharing with people, and I love hearing from them what they're doing. So, and I love hearing the fact that, oh, you know, you said this and this and that resonated with me. I went through that, or I tried that and it worked. And so please, I love engagement. Drop me a message in the comments or send me an email. I can't remember if I have my email up on the things, but I'll start putting one down below in the info in case you want to send me an anonymous email and you don't want to post a comment. I know some people don't like doing that on social. That's fine too. But I'm always available to help chat and help in any way I can. And that's why we're here, is to help each other grow spiritually, awaken, whatever you want to call it. But just support each other, have fun, play, dance, sing, and have a good time, and create the world, the new earth that we want to move into. And let that old shit pass away, because it's garbage. It got us here, but it's time to let it go, right? I think it's time to move on. And the old structures are fallen, and we're going to rebuild the new stuff for the next generation, the new civilization, and make it amazing for all those wonderful little kids running around out there, and all the future generations, so that they can enjoy this beautiful earth while it's here. And yeah, so thank you guys. I appreciate it. And yeah, so I was just looking for any last little things. I have a whole wall of of quotes and sayings. So um, yeah, I was thinking if there's anything else I wanted to share. And I think that's it for today. I've rambled on enough. I'm sure you guys are tired of me and you probably got to get going, you know? So I'll let you get out of here. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and we'll see you next week.